Oh, okay. We're live. And yeah, it's music because it's Thursday. And that's what is always the case on Thursdays. Yes. So yeah, this week we've got kind of a bit compared to last week. Last week was relatively short. Felt a bit disenfranchised or disillusioned last week. And this time around, did not have those feelings. Realistically speaking, the music this week, I think, was a lot stronger. Did not feel like I was just sort of picking over the scraps at the start of the month. What we have here is just a nice selection across all four genre types. We've got electronic music, we've got rock and metal, pop and indie, and rap and hip-hop, and that is the order that we are going to be going with them. Just so everybody is clear, we've got 2 electronic, we have 4 rock and metal, then we have, I suppose I should just count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pop and indie, so it is kind of heavy in that, but they are all over the spectrum in there. In fact, I would say that the pop and indie is quite varied, perhaps more varied than it typically is. And then we have 2 rap albums to end things with. And then there is a track that we're going to take a listen to at the very, very end. It is the Haski track. We're going to save that for the very end. The Kanye West diss. It's an interesting one. It's one that I have mixed feelings about. We'll talk about that at the very end. But yeah, we're gonna get into it. I do want to say too, I typically the stream, picks up over the course of a week, close to, I don't know, like maybe 80 views. It's not a, Russian music is not, it's not like a huge draw for various reasons. But I think it was the Kai Angels Zavet thing last week. Anyway, it ended up being like over 500 views. So I guess it does pay off sometimes to follow the trends of the youth. But like I said, we're going to start off with electronic music. So let me go ahead and get us over to this. So, and I think everything should look and sound normal. If something looks a bit off or sounds a bit off, let me know. I was tooling around trying to get my action camera set up because like my webcam is full HD. It's 1080p, which is fine. It's like an okay resolution, but I figured with the action cam, I could actually get it up to 4K, but didn't quite get things set up in time this evening, so I defaulted back. So I think everything should be as it normally is, but just in case. Oh, let me do one other thing here too. I want to close out of Discord and Telegram because I hate when things pop up in the middle of the stream. But yeah, anyway, so we're going to start with an EP here. The artist is NDORFIK, and the name of the EP is Ojala, I think is how I'm going to pronounce that. So by now you should all have a pretty clear understanding of how much I appreciate good IDM, and also, especially after last week with the Driada remix album, you should also kind of be understanding too how much I appreciate when there are original reworks of already interesting tracks. And this EP is both of those things in a concentrated form, right? We have what is already a good namesake track followed up by 4 remixes. And like I said, the original track is solid. I'm just going to start playing it right now. But it's the guests and their variations on this track. They just keep exploring this musical idea again and again, but it feels different every single time, right? Like, effectively, you're listening to the same song 5 times, but you wouldn't ever really recognize it because they're all so different and unique. So I'm just going to go ahead and I know. Again, this is a very specific description, but especially that like bass drum and the sort of weird clap sound remind me a lot of something off of Nine Inch Nails' Year Zero. So that's the original, pretty straightforward. But then already with the first remix and just from the opening seconds, you can already tell that this is taking things in a much different direction. I know that this would probably, in a lot of people's minds, be considered like a maxi single because it is technically just one song and a bunch of variations. But like I said, because the variations are all their own unique product, right? Like the bass drum clap thing, it's the same effectively, but it's also wildly different. So you have one that's like really light and just kind of bouncy. And we have another one that has a bit more of that sort of dystopian, glitchy feel. Right, and here you can actually hear the original track more so than you could on the first remix, right? But it's there as that sort of foghorn in the very... I mean, it feels like a foghorn very far and distant. An echo of what the original one was. And then... Again, this one feels even less like an echo and more of just a straight up deconstruction of the original, right? Like a weird digital dissection of the original track. With plenty of digital artifacts and glitches and things falling apart along the way. So yeah, anyway, that is, and I love the album artwork. I don't think I put it up, but it is pretty great. Just so simplistic, but so yeah, that is the Ojala EP or maxi single, whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to call it an EP, and the artist is NDORFIK. So that is the first one, and then the other electronic release this week is from an artist, Artem Xio. I think is how that's, it's like the Chinese X, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, Как бы то ни было. Как бы то ни было is the also fantastic album artwork. I'm going to assume that's water in the glass, but it also looks like quite a small glass. Anyway, Как бы то ни было effectively translates as be that as it may. And that's kind of the idea of this album. Be that as it may, keep moving. That's life. That is ultimately the idea. That's what the artist himself said. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw this on. Right, the artist has talked about how, right, you keep moving. Don't get bogged down. Get bothered by what has happened. That energy of just keep moving forward is reflected here in the music. This is just super positive stuff. It's bouncy. It's got a lot of good energy. And it doesn't kind of demand that you give into it so much, right? It's not super pushy, but it's just incessant. You can see, right? 12 tracks, like an hour long. So even if when you put this on, you're not feeling in a super fun, bouncy, energetic mood, because it is incessant, it just like keeps prodding at you little by little, and eventually you start to give into it because it's just so effective in its messaging, which is just this kind of like keep moving, have fun, don't get bogged down. It's just happy, but without like throwing it in your face, right? What do I have here? It's like the friend who sees you're in a bad mood and will keep lovingly pestering you until a smile cracks and those good vibes are back, right? It's house music where you're gonna encounter some frenetic electronic sounds like jungle and trance in here from time to time. And there are also things that are a bit more chill, a bit more like lounge music. But generally speaking, regardless of what slight variation of house the music here takes on, it is just all good vibes, all love, and all about moving forward and moving in general. It's just, I don't know, it's just happy. Like, this is definitely a bit more of a variation. I'm not gonna mix up my electronic genres. This is the one that I wanted. Hold up. I honestly don't know. It honestly doesn't matter. You could kind of pick any track and there's again, this is a very house music doesn't really age in a lot of ways, but at the same time, you can listen to house music from 20 years ago or 30 years ago and recognize it is a product of its time. So there's something kind of fresh about this, but at the same time, it's still a bit of a nostalgic sound as well too. So yeah, the vocal sample, there we go. So yeah, if you're feeling kind of grumpy or something like that, this is a good album to put on and just let it work its magic. It's a little bit of that, like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. This is the musical equivalent of that, I suppose. So yeah, the artist is Artem Xio, and the album is Как бы то ни было. And that's it for electronic music. 2 releases, an EP and a full length, but both kind of different, but both very, very good. I enjoyed both of them extensively. So up next, we have rock and metal. And yeah, what I gotta say is, right, it's autumn, right? Almost the autumnal equinox hits on Monday, I believe, at 9 p.m.-ish Moscow time. So we are in the final days of astronomical summer, if you will. But autumn is very much here. The leaves are already starting to change color. And as I've gotten older, I do appreciate autumn more and more. The air gets that chill, crisp feel to it. The flora start to put on a show of color that rivals what you get with the springtime blossoms, and the metal community just kicks into overdrive with their release schedule. It's not super reflected here. There are only 4 releases this week, but I have a feeling, because that's typically how it always goes, that September into October is just when it's like the metal community is just waiting for it. It's, obviously not in Russia, but Halloween's around the corner. So, and the 4 releases we have here this week are really good stuff. So the first one we have is from a group called Black Soul Invader. This is blackened death metal out of Chelyabinsk. And before we get any further, this is not important. It does not change anything. But just so you know, before I turn this on, it is a female vocalist. It's not the novelty, which makes it good. But I just kind of, because it's one of those things, I did not realize that. And then I was looking at the group. It's like, oh, damn. She's got some pipes on her. So yeah. But yeah, this is just, it's fast and it's heavy, and it's very appropriate for an industrial town out of the Ural Mountains. But it's also, it's it's melodic as well too. I want to start with the second track. Great album artwork too. Oh, the name of the EP is, I believe it's pronounced Morana. Who is the goddess of winter and death. Howdy, Nelly. Thanks for dropping by. So yeah, again, like I said, female vocalist, bit taken by surprise there. She's belting it out just like the best of them. But yeah, one more taste here and then we'll move on. But all right, I'm not gonna. There's gonna be more of this to come anyway. We've got 3 more rock and metal albums to get through, but yeah, just kind of nothing too exotic, nothing too out of control, but a promising EP from, like I said, a quintet out of Chelyabinsk playing some blackened death metal. So that is the EP. Again, I believe the pronunciation is Morana, and the artist is Black Soul Invader. That's the name of the group. So, all right. Moving on, we get into a group from even further into the depths of Russia. This is the group Torden and their EP Beneath the Skin here. This is a group which describes themselves as Yakutian black metal. So Yakutian black metal means that they are coming all the way from Yakutsk or Yakutia, which is in the far, far Russian Far East. Not quite to Kamchatka, but, for those of you, you're getting close to Alaska, right? out in that area. So, like I said, they describe themselves as Yakutian black metal, which is different because, as they say, Yakutia is one of the harshest regions on the planet where time has stood still and silver fogs smother the land. There, among the endless expanses, the natural connection between people and nature remains unbroken. They live in a place where magic can still be found in the air. There, the souls of the dead are fed and rituals for the solstices are held. There rules the ancient and unforgotten. That is Torden's description of their musical sound. Sounds cool. It's basically black metal. This is an interesting EP too because it kind of feels like they might have just had some songs. Obviously, the first track is just an intro track, and then the first true track, In the Mist of Northern Lands, is a really fast, kind of blistering style black metal. But then the final 3 songs, which are longer too, you can just look at the lengths here and maybe get an idea. It kind of slows down a little bit, and even though black metal is still the core, it also feels a little bit more like traditional metal. The vocals are still black metal vocals, to be sure. But maybe they haven't quite figured out what Yakutian metal actually sounds like. I mean, they got the description, very cool. But it's a promising one, and you know, we don't get that much out of Yakutia, I should say. So. So here, like kind of what you would expect from black metal, right? Really clean sound. It does say 2025 remaster though, so. Like, and again, right, for people who aren't into the black metal vocals, this part right here is probably quite enjoyable. Just like the tremolos but unfortunately, all things must come to an end. So this is kind of, when I was listening to it, I was like, yeah, pretty straightforward, good. I like that classic, fast black metal sound. Definitely slows down a little bit, right? We kind of like, but then you jump to the other tracks, and it's like, even from the start, it just like kicks things off, slows them way down, and it kind of, there's I don't know if the second track, or like the first true track, is the outlier here, or I guess technically it would be if the other ones are like it. But it was a bit of a tonal shift, which I wasn't really expecting. Obviously, once it happened, I was kind of expecting it to go back to the first sound, but when it didn't on the 4th track, and then like, we've still got the tremolos here and that kind of general atmosphere of malice, but it's much slower, right, than what we started out with. So, and again, this it's still very black metal. I'm not gonna pretend that it isn't, but it also just kind of feels like metal, like an amalgamation of it just feels like it could be a closer track on like any major metal album, just like the steady double bass drum and stuff like that. Not that it's bad, I'm just kind of saying I don't think these guys have quite figured out what the Yakutian metal sound is, but you know, they'll get there. But still, right, if you're into black metal, or just, I guess, like, a general metal sound in overall, then you're probably going to find something here that's also, you know, going to tickle your fancy. So the EP is Beneath the Skin. The group is Torden out of Yakutia. So pretty good album artwork too. I do got to give credit where credit's due. Got these weird like tree pillars, and then I mean, like, it's pretty straightforward for a black metal group, but also a little bit easier to understand than is typically the case. So okay, now we're just going to get into the point where I'm not really going to go too much into a description. Here we have Hymn of the Wretched is the name of the EP. With, I don't know, I love the, maybe this is a reference to something I don't get. The group's name is Ocean in My Bath, which feels like the name of a bath bomb, like something that you would want to sell to people as, like, you know, come home after a long day of work, grab the Ocean in My Bath beauty bomb and whisk yourself away to the, like, just some sort of weird Johnson & Johnson product but yeah, this is obviously not a Johnson & Johnson product here. This is part technical death metal, part deathcore. Not as chunky and groovy as the deathcore that we had last week with Astrashell, or as much as the album that we're going to talk about, but this thing still just absolutely slaps. So let's just enjoy the soothing sounds of Ocean in My Bath. It feels very much like tech death right now, but like these breakdowns are just like the So we got the speed, the speed and the intensity. Well, it's intense, I guess, all the way through. But the speed of the tech death and the technical aspects of it, and then the chunky with the deathcore. Back to tech death. But, like, it's good. I'm not. I feel like if the Ocean My Bath bomb was an actual product, it would have to be crimson red when you threw it into the water, right? Also got some pretty sick album artwork. I kind of thought it was maybe AI generated, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's actual. So yeah, I don't know. This is the type of stuff I listen to when I go out cycling. I don't know. So this is definitely going into my cycling playlist on my iPod. So I do keep the iPod for cycling purposes. But yes, pretty short, 4 tracks. That is the EP Hymn of the Wretched by Ocean in My Bath. Let it whisk you away to a fantasy tropical island of death and misery. All right, that was kind of dumb. Anyway, moving on. The final one here. We have the group who refuses to follow capitalization or capitalizing conventions of the English language. The group is Take It Down, and the album is Kульт, or Cult, I guess, is if I want to anglicize it. Kульт is what it is. So, I've mentioned Job for a Cowboy, I feel like, a few times in the last few months. That sort of tech death meets deathcore sound. But while the groups that I've used in conjunction with Job for a Cowboy have leaned more heavily in the direction of modern deathcore, this album right here, Kульт, has the sound of Job for a Cowboy's 2008's Genesis. Even the artwork feels similar. Not exactly the same, but there's some similarities to it. This is more melodic than Genesis by Job for a Cowboy. The breakdown choruses are heavier and chunkier. So while you can feel the foundations of what was laid down 2 decades ago by Job for a Cowboy, this is an entirely different beast, one that was born kind of clawing and gnawing out of the memory of that breakthrough album. It's pretty solid. I'm just gonna, as I have so eloquently in my notes, TLDR, heavy shit goes hard. Yeah, the vocals are gonna be like hell to some people. And I do prefer the old Job for a Cowboy vocals over these, but it's got that, it almost feels like the time signatures are jumping around, or like, it's not genty, but it's not so straightforward either. It's like, almost, it feels like you're getting jerked around a little bit with the rhythms and the time signatures. One last taste here. Yeah, this is... It's probably clear for everyone at this point in time. So yeah, that is the album Kульт, Kульt by Take It Down. Just a really solid kind of deathcore, death metal-y, techy kind of album. if you're a fan of older Job for a Cowboy, and I guess newer Job for a Cowboy too, then you're gonna enjoy that. But yeah, that wraps it up for metal this week. Definitely, I think for the rock and metal category, definitely a heavier week. We started out with Blackened Death, and then it was just kind of like Yakutian black metal, and then it was just like tech death and deathcore, which is definitely on the very heavy end of the spectrum. So we're gonna move over now to give everyone a break into pop and indie. This is, I'll say, a single, but it's 3 tracks. I'm gonna count it as an EP. I feel like that is fair. In my mind, I know technically that probably is a single, but in my mind, a single is a single. It's 1 track. So, I mean, that's, really pedantic, but regardless, single does mean 1. Anyway, the group is Imai, and the EP, as I am calling it, Dayhn. Yeah, these are tracks that have been kicking around the hard disk drives, the old externals of evidently 2 indie darlings here. I don't really know, but both of these artists are kind of already fairly well known, or at least active on the indie music scene here in Russia, with their various main projects. And they decided to do a little side project. Based on the quality of these 3 songs, I do hope that we get more material for them in the future. And it is something that they have promised that they're working on. This is somewhere sonically between post-punk and dreamy bedroom indie pop. Like, the tracks are equally light and serious. Musically, they're very light, but lyrically, they're quite serious. But yeah, it's the kind of thing that you could just easily put on repeat. It's 10 minutes, just like a little pocket universe of time. You get sucked into them, and if you do have them on repeat, you don't really recognize the fact that you've already spun through them multiple times. A little bit like the Flaming Lips with, was it Yoshima? Just struck me right now. Yoshima battles pink robots. Here's the song. Probably Fight Test. Yeah, okay. Alright, yeah, so that's weird too, because I don't know how many times I've listened to this before, and then just right now, those opening chords just, it's like, yeah. It's obviously not as psychedelic as the Flaming Lips, but there is something there, which is good. That's a great album. Those are some great songs. So if you're channeling that, then here we got the post-punk sound too. I guess I should. Russia and the post-Soviet space love post-punk. I mean, that is, I think, largely due, in fact, to the musical legacy of groups like Kino. But still, it's kind of wild, just like... Oh, also, it's been a great week for album artwork, too. I've kind of, hasn't been anything too over the top. It's been a lot of really kind of simplistic ones, but to the point that work effectively.
пивные крышки и шум башен. В наушниках молчание, слышу свои шаги. Этот город меня душит, мне надоите. Ты чувствуешь силу притяжения, алкоголь, никотин.
And this also reminds me of a song from like the 80s that I don't know how many times I've heard this song now. I still cannot put my finger on it, but I don't know what it is. All right, I mean, it's a shorty, if it's a short little release here, so if I just sit here too long, I'll just play the whole thing. But yeah, just a nice 3 tracks, really short, 10 minutes. Put it on repeat, listen to it a few times, and it's just nice. Like I said, somewhere between post-punk and indie bedroom pop. So almost a Pixies vibe. Yeah, it is a little bit like the Pixies, but it's there's a specific, it might be like is it what's the Stop the World and Melt with You? It's not quite that song, but maybe it is that song. I don't know. I'd have to go back. I can't dig through. I feel like it's from an 80s one-hit wonder vibe is what I'm getting. But anyway, yeah. The group is Imai, and the EP, the release here is called Da ili Niet. So yes or no. All right. Up next, we have, this is an interesting one. So it is 8 tracks. They have it listed as an album, but this is very much an EP because half of these tracks, I do want to say this is a very, very pretty release. We have 4 songs and then 4 poems. 4 of the tracks, the ones that are not checkmarked here. So the 2nd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 7th, those are all poems written by the artist here. There is some light musical backing on a few of them, but yeah. And honestly, the songs at times are also very close to poetry. It's one of those albums. This has got the female singer-songwriter vibe at its core. It's that sort of search for the beauty in everything, in the everyday, in the darker and uglier aspects of life where you typically don't look for beauty, that kind of thing. You get it. What I did think that was interesting about this, and I didn't actually go and explore into it, I just was reading about it, and I'll tell the name of everything here in a second when I finish my little spiel. The artist, which is TREPET, released a Telegram bot. So if you go on Telegram and there's a link, or it's maybe on the artist's Telegram page, the bot will provide you with supportive psychological practices and advice that you can do and listen to or follow while you're listening to this album. So it's supposed to be like, not only, from an audio point of view, it's supposed to help you achieve peace and feel better, but also there is an actual, like, we're going to put a bot out there to help give you further advice, which I think is kind of nice, but I'll just play. So I said the group is TREPET, and the EP is вдох-выход-вход-выдох, which вдох and выдох is inhale, exhale, выход, вход, exit, entrance. So they're kind of like, they're very similar in Russian, and they do have similar ideas. V and вы as a prefix means to go in, and вы as a prefix means to go out. So вдох, breathe in, выдох, breathe out, выход, ход is like walk, so go out, вход is go in. But you can see the letters are all basically the same, just kind of these rearranging. So I thought that was kind of nice too, and I just wanted to share that as well. Really don't like these weird little things that Spotify does on the side there, like these 10-second repeated clips of whatever. But
Истошно молчу вдогонку, корчит, что был, есть таково.
yeah, this is also a sound that like
Выйти в сторонку со мной
I
на разговор.
don't. There's maybe been like one other release this year that has this sort of female singer-songwriter vibe of just like guitar. Maybe there's like a piano in the background. It's very sparse.
Щелкнет так внутри, значит есть контакт, мне щекочет.
Just very gentle, very calming and relaxing. Like I said, very pretty, as pretty as music can be.
Я люблю наши тихие дни, все как медленный фильм. Дымка в смог, диафильм, в диалог мы одни. Ущипни, я не верю своим, что любим, мы любим. Наши тихие дни сохрани. Мы обменялись.
So musically, you get the idea, just so you can also get an idea too what the poetry tracks are like.
Был особенно смелым. Выйти счастливиться целый из этого клуба. Мне этим летом
So obviously, if you don't speak
две
Russian, you're gonna get
бесконечности.
almost nothing out of this, but there's a dramatic
Всё
effect there, I
увеличила и
guess, as well.
подсветила нещадно. Так эта жизнь меня учит навеки прощаться.
I'm assuming that the artist also
Вечность
wrote the
доверяться
poetry.
так глупо,
Just gonna
в
assume
такое
that.
время. Две бесконечности. Тысячи человек.
Yeah, very nice, gentle album, very kind of artistic and also introspective, and you get the vibe. That is TREPET, and the EP, which I'm still calling it an EP, is вдох-выход-вход-выдох. Okay, shifting gears entirely. We have the Belgrade Beaches with their EP, You Declare What? This is instrumental surf rock, but it's heavier than that kind of effervescent surf rock sound of the 1960s. This feels like The Heavy, the British group The Heavy, doing their take on surf rock. And then there are some moments on these tracks that are just like straight up post-rock, post-metal. This is from a Tula native who I think is currently residing in Belgrade. You know, I'm not going to spell it out, but quite a few people left Russia, like 2022, 2023, relocated to Serbia. Quite a few from the creative scene as well. And I believe this is one of those. The Belgrade Beaches over the last year have put out about 13 tracks. And I do kind of hope that they are compiled and put together into a full length, or maybe that the artist in the future will just stockpile the releases a little bit and then just put them all out at once. But yeah, this is just like a really fun sound, really energetic. It's surf rock, right? And that is supposed to look like the actor who plays Machete, which is Danny Trejo. So yeah, right, like I said, surf rock, but heavier, which is fine. Like, Even got the electric organ in there. So I guess if anybody has been sitting around 2025 hankering for a more modern take on surf rock, then hey, you're in luck right now. We've got it here. Really short, right? It's 3 songs. It's 6 minutes long, so very, very short. So I said, really hope that the artist here just compiles all of his pre-existing tracks into a full-on full-length, or maybe just piles them up and puts things together so that there's an actual heftier piece. But for now, we have these 3 tracks. The artist is the Belgrade Beaches, and the EP is You Declare What? With Danny Trejo gracing the cover. Okay. We're going to be rediscovering the tab limit over and over again. Next up, we have, it's kind of an interesting one. I wasn't really sure what to go with this. We have the EP Son, Жены, Rybaka, and the artist is Linia Bikini. So this is the Dream of the Fisherman's Wife, which is, the name is taken from a single or a series of erotic engravings from like feudal Japan by the artist, the guy who painted The Wave. Hokusai, I can't remember his name. It doesn't matter. And it all plays into it here. It's not really important. Musically, this is that riot girl, female punk energy. At times, it feels like Sleater Kinney, which I probably just mispronounced, but that's one of those groups I never really talk about, just listened. At times, it feels a little bit like White Lung, and at times, I would say there's also some Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs energy here. And there is probably another group, and I know there's another group that I was trying to think of as well when I was listening to this, but I didn't bother to like spend hours scrolling through my music library trying to actually find it. Yeah, it's boisterous, just kind of like riot girl punk. There's saxophone in there for good measure, which is kind of good. It's kind of fun. Just in general, the sort of girl punk is not something that we normally get here. So it was, again, a breath of fresh air. Maybe something like Le Tigre or Ladytron. Ladytron typically more electronic, but maybe Le Tigre. Oh, and I did also consider The Breeders with Kim Deal from the Pixies when I was thinking about this group, but it didn't quite fit in my mind at any rate. It's like definitely more of an alt-rock sound here. I can't quite put my finger on it. There's that saxophone. So yeah, it's a sound that's going to be familiar to some of you listening. I don't know. It was definitely one that I was not expecting from the album artwork. I'm not really sure what I was expecting, to be completely honest. Like I said, it was a bit of a breath of fresh air. So that is the EP Son, Жены, Rybaka, and the artist is Linia Bikini, or Bikini Line. Okay, moving on. We have another EP. We will have another EP. The group is Rope Gazers, and the EP is Голова, в облаках, or Head in the Clouds. This is the third EP from a group out of Nizhny Novgorod. The songs here follow what is a long night when two people keep running into each other and then going their separate ways, only to later encounter each other one again, like something out of a teen rom-com, but in the best way possible. 4 tracks, honestly not a single one that drags here. It's an EP you kind of wish would never end, like those summer nights of young love laid out in the music here. Jump ahead a little bit.
Уже затихли города, и притяжения больше нет. Я посмотрю в твои глаза, ты промолчишь в ответ. Заполнили пространство восторгом, диссонансом мир. Ты, я.
A lot of like less distraught, but a lot of Los Campesinos vibes. Old Los Campesinos. Like more positive.
Найдем координаты, разделим мир на даты. Когда и что случилось? Мы спали и мы снились, как звезды растворились в небе утром. Мир.
Shouted, like chain vocals, even the electric keyboard in the background. That's interesting. Why is there no sound? No, hold up. No. What is this? Okay, whatever. I guess the third track just ain't happening. That's okay. We'll go with the final one. It's very nice little EP there. It's got a lot of good energy. Just really nice, young, kind of passionate and fast indie rock. Like I said, reminds me a lot of old Los Campesinos, but more positive and upbeat. So the group is Rope Gazers, and the EP is Голова, в облаках. All right. Up next, we have a self-titled album. We will have a self-titled album. Come on. Upstream request timeout. I don't know what that means. Well, that's interesting. We're going to hope that this issue resolves itself. Okay, one of them opened. Let me try this. Okay. So Spotify was just a little fussy. That's what I'm just going to go ahead and reload all of the tabs right now. We're taking a little bit of a breather. Yeah. Moving back. Yes, this is the self-titled album by the group Konflirt or Konflirt. This is indie rock that you would be forgiven for labeling lo-fi or shoegaze. It's been recorded on the modern day equivalent of a shoe. The auto tracks feel like they've just been super compressed, and as a result of that, distorted till they sound like a track that you have on your iTunes that you originally downloaded off of LimeWire like 2 decades ago. You know the sound, right? We all have those sound, or like those tracks that we downloaded when we were in high school or early in college that we never bothered to replace, and they're still at like 128 bits per second or kilobits per second or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't, like, they're at 128 instead of 320 or whatever. So the compression is horrible. The hi-hats sound like that's what this album sounds like, but it's done intentionally. And in the same way that nostalgia makes the past all warm and fuzzy with the harsh corners rounded off, the cheap recording trick here makes the tracks, which are already kind of bubbling and very positive, it makes them into something even more welcoming. It's kind of like all of the rock genres at once. You've got like garage, lo-fi, indie, alternative, and it's just that sort of old fuzzy sound. It's everything for everyone without effectively losing its originality. It's a whole lot, but I think you'll get the sound. You heard that hi-hat when it came in, right? Like, and I don't know if anybody has noticed this in the States. I'm sure it's happening there as well too. But it's still very much underground, like the resurgence or the rebirth of cassette tapes as a medium with which groups are putting out their music. It's not super common here, but I have noticed it more and more and more with each passing year. I see it at concerts and stuff like that when I do end up going. And I feel like just like vinyl, right? Like cassettes are gonna maybe make a comeback. Like there's obviously various reasons for it, but part of it is connected, I think, to the sound as well, and how there are certain musical sounds that just sound better when the physical distortion is there, right? Like, this conversation has been had with things like video games, right? When you take old 8 and 16-bit video games from the early consoles and you upscale them to work on an HD TV, they look bad because the pixels are not supposed to be hyper sharp. They're supposed to be blurry and kind of a mess. And I think there are certain musical sounds that benefit from that too. Now, obviously the vocals are recorded in that way. Like, story. Thanks for joining. So yeah, it sounds not very sharp, not very well produced, but that's the idea. And it'll be interesting to see if that concept, that musical direction, is something which continues to develop. Because I'm sure this is not a one-off thing. I'm sure that by and large, we are going to see more groups attempt to emulate the poor recording conditions of like the 1980s in the future. And again, right, as somebody whose first digital music collection sounded compressed and distorted like this, it actually kind of sounds normal to me, right? Like, after CDs, when things went digital, this is just what they sounded like for a while. That was okay. So yeah, anyway, that is the self-titled album by Konflirт, which is, again, just this kind of, sounds like it was recorded in a cardboard box, but that's kind of the idea, as far as I understand. And that's okay. There's something to be said about that. It's a weird nostalgia probably for people who did not actually live through that period of time, but yeah, no worries. And that's kind of, yeah, Konflirт is nice. It's a very kind of like chill thing. Okay, this is actually one I listened to last week, but I did not get around to including it, which is fine because I came back to it and I kind of want to. This is the No Touch EP by TAKETAKE and Dayhn. I have no idea. On the surface, it has all of the trappings of the modern sad boy pop rap music, but it's the backing. I think TAKETAKE and Dayhn are producers. I really can't figure it out. I did some digging. But it's the backing. Like the backing on these tracks is electro pop that sounds a lot like it has the DNA of groups like the Postal Service, Subtract, M83, just that wave of indie electro pop, the whole range of it from the like early 2010s. I honestly dug around on Kontakt and even on Telegram. I didn't see any discussion about this EP. This was one of those that was just included in. Some channels will have just like albums that are dropping this week, and then they'll have a list of like 7 albums. And that's it. There's just like no further discussion. This was one of those. And yeah, the cover, I can understand why it reminds you of the Deftones. The horse is forever associated with Chino and his company. This is kind of the only release from these two artists, though. TAKETAKE has a full length, and then Dayhn from last year with another artist, and Dayhn has an EP that he released 2 years ago. They have put out like kind of a steady flow of singles, but this just is, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this, but I do hope they do more of it. It's, and I don't know. That weird like crickety crackety thing in the background reminds me of the Postal Service, just like right off of Such Great Heights, maybe. So like I said, it feels like it's kind of doing that sad boy pop rap thing. But then there's this, which is very much not that. Like, I don't even know how exactly to label this. I just threw it into the pop and indie because I feel like it kind of, it just fits in here somewhere. And it's not just one track, like this almost could be like Jesus, like Moo Juice maybe, or Apparat as well. Maybe there's some Moo Juice DNA in here that I didn't even think about that. So like if you just actually no, you leave the vocals in though, right? Like the vocals still feel like that appropriate electro indie pop. So I don't know how exactly to classify the sound. Like, it reminded me so much the times that I was listening to it of like so many other big tracks, but like from the early 2010s. And I don't like, because these artists don't really have, they're young and they don't really have a huge back catalog. Like I said, it's just maybe like one single release and then a bunch of singles. So is this their sound? Is this just like a one-off and it's just like a weird fluke that they decided to do this thing together and it ended up being like this? I don't know. I will be interested to see. But it's just like, specifically the musical sounds are so out of place for 2025, I guess is what it feels like. Just those backing tracks feel out of a different time. The singing, the vocals and all that stuff, fine, right? Contemporary in their way. But like, I swear to God, that could be something Death Cab or the Postal Service. I don't know. So yeah, this is a weird one. It's very short, right? It's 13 minutes long. It's, on one hand, like I said, it's that sort of pop rap that a lot of young men are trying to put out now. Or boys, I guess, still in school. But from the sort of production end of things, it feels like something I would have been listening to kind of 15 to 20 years ago. And it's such a weird, I want to see what TAKETAKE and Dayhn do further in the future. I want to see if this is something that was a fluke or if it's a choice. It's a sound that they have decided to kind of develop into their own. But yeah, that is the No Touch EP from TAKETAKE and Dayhn. Very short, but kind of weird nostalgia vibes there. The last one for pop and indie here too is kind of an odd one. I a lot of times will avoid albums where I just see groups online reposting the artist's press release again and again. It kind of feels like nobody bothered to actually listen to the album, but I figured I would give this one a spin. It's a very interesting sound. It's kind of in that happy middle place between dreary, soul-crushing post-punk and then hyperactive retro synthwave. There is a happy middle there. From the first track to the second track and then back to the third track, you might experience musical whiplash from this balance. It does go back and forth pretty hard, but that's kind of okay. You get used to it pretty quickly. The vocalist is probably going to be a hard no for some people. He has a very specific way of singing. Kind of like a Granny Smith apple. You got to really be in the mood for it. If you bite into it, you're just not ready for it. And I will just read what the press release said, because like I said, they were just copying and pasting it all around the internet with this album. Songs from the depths and edges of a mega city crushed by the gray sky and never-ending NUI. A personal micro-apocalypse in the decoration of a typical Soviet apartment block. Sure, right? Like, you see that and you're just like, okay, I don't know. But let's give it a listen here. Oh, the group is Проспект Ленина, and the album is Полынь. So yeah, we got that kind of, again, the post-punk sound here. Now the vocalist is, I mean, I'm used to him by now because I've listened to this all the way through. Right, it's kind of post-punk, but now we're in that kind of retro wave thing going on here. It kind of feels like the singer has a head cold, right? And his nose is just all stuffed up. Then go to the second track. And it feels like Maniac. He's a maniac, man. Like, it just, tonally, it's a bit of a shift. Like I said, you go from that kind of little bit more brooding, and then here, just like, and again, that voice. And then, like, the last two tracks, too, have a weird, slightly old front 242, like really early KMFDM sort of vibe. No, not really KMFDM, but like earlier industrial sound. That's really KMFDM is not. Front 242 is fine. It's another good. I don't know what it is. I would say by and large that hyperactive retro synthwave sound is more at the core than the oppressive post-punk. But there is a back and forth. There's like a it's definitely an album. Like I said, if you can get past the vocalist thing, which at a certain point in time it kind of just feels kitsch. You're just like, okay, that's just like, it's goofy. That's fine. It's a fun album. This is like one that I think on first listen, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, and then when you get to the back half, your ear has adapted. You understand musically what's going on, and the vocalist has just sort of become the vocalist. But when you come back to it again, like, it's a lot more fun with successive visits, because in the first half you're not really just like paying as much attention to the vocalist because you know what it's going to be. I hate to like call him out so much, but it's a very specific vocal sound. So yeah, anyway, you get the sound, you get the idea, you get the sound. It's good. It grows on you, and I do think that this is one of those albums that is probably going to be largely ignored, but there's something here. There's something to it. I had a lot of fun with it. So yeah, the group is Проспект Ленина, and the album is Полынь. So yeah, that's it for pop and indie. We are on to the final two albums, and they are in rap and hip hop. First up, we have VELIAL Squad and their album BELMO. I just want to get this out of the way right now. If I thought that the group's last album was one of the best rap albums in the first quarter, this is a disappointment. There definitely are some interesting tracks here, and I feel like the second half of this album, like the band Monoman. I'll have to go back and check Monoman. I've listened to Monoman before, but I'll have to go back and check him out. Anyway, back to VELIAL Squad. The album here is definitely much more solid in the second half, but the first few tracks I was not feeling at all. And even then, when I did start to get into it, it took a little while. And it's not a situation where it was an unusual sound or something. It's just, this is just not anywhere as good as VELIALology, which was what they put out at the start of the year. But I also wanted to contrast this with Kai Angel's Damage from last week. And that is, if you want to do that kind of edgy horrorcore sound and vibe, dark, edgy rap leans into horror and black imagery, this is still a much better job of that, right? The lyrics are focused on that. These guys have it's kind of goofy, but like they wear the balaclavas over their faces, and they do have, creep show, right? They do go with the horrorcore rap thing as well, but the thing is, you never feel confused. Like it's a rap album, right? So while this is not anywhere near as good as their last release from like February or March, this is for all the Kai Angels of the world. If you want to make a horror or like a dark and edgy rap album, this is kind of what you're aiming for. Not Damage. this is a pretty good example, right? It's got that slightly off-kilter beat.
Не юзаю порох, будто я в средних веках. Я патики малые лепят, жаль, что не снеговика. Засыпаю с мыслями о каше. Нет один сурка, над Кремлем белый туман. Я вернулся в МСК.
I mean, by and large, the horrorcore rap thing, it all kind of feels slightly derivative of Insane Clown Posse, I'm not gonna lie. And while I probably in my youth hated on Insane Clown Posse without giving them a chance, I still probably would not have been a fan of them. I don't know. It just feels like the youth have rediscovered the idea of Insane Clown Posse, which is kind of hilarious because you can't top Insane Clown Posse. They are literally called Insane Clown Posse. But yeah, in terms of scary, dark, edgy rap, like this is so much better than High Angel's just turd in a bathtub from last week. So. Also, shout out to Metox here.
Читать рэп, когда тебе за 30, значит
We're gonna be talking
смириться,
about
что где-то в
Metox in
40
just a
на тебя
second, so.
будут смотреть, как на мужчину в патрулях и трубах, выцеплять пиздюшек в клубах, говоря, что меня постили на сайте рэп.ру, я еще крут.
Like, I don't know. It's fine. This is a fine rap album, all things considered. It's just in comparison to what already came out this year, it feels kind of like a question mark as to maybe why they didn't wait a little bit longer, or why not make this an EP, or because it doesn't feel as coherent as Veliology. But yeah, there are some good tracks on this, and again, I really just wanted to call this to attention simply because we have already seen VELIAL Squad earlier this year, and I wanted to use this as the counterpoint to Kai Angel's Damage from last week. So that is, again, VELIAL Squad. The album is BELMO. Yeah, we're going to talk about Metox again. I think this is, and as far as I'm concerned, this is the album of the week. This is a rap album. It is Lojko, I think it's Lojko Zobar. I don't know exactly. It's from a short story by Mayakovsky, which I did not read. But yeah, this is a beast of an album. 23 songs. It's an hour long. It was 8 years in the making. Metox has said that he has been saving these tracks, not including them on his other releases, and sort of because he had this idea. Metox actually was in prison. He went to prison for narcotics, and so like he has served time, and he said that, you know, he started writing this album because when he was in prison, he read this short story by Gorky, and he decided like he wanted to make an album kind of which reflected that story. And so he would write songs, and he would specifically not include them on other albums because he wanted to make sure that he wanted to gather up all of his, what he considered to be his best songs that fit this story that he had in his head that was similar to the Gorky story. And then he released it. And he started this process back in 2017, and here we are in 2025, and now he releases it. It outlines, again, his time in prison, dives into the struggle and hopelessness of people on the fringes of society. I first heard Metox last year with his album. I cannot remember the name of it now. Let me just pull it up real fast. Полночь трудного дня was the one from last year that I listened to, and I was kind of blown away with it because of the storytelling elements and just like how real it felt. At that time, I didn't know his backstory either. The storytelling here does feel like something ripped out of real life, because it probably is in a lot of situations. I needed to pull up the lyrics here because this is very, very dense at times. I've seen a lot of people compare it to poetry, and I think that for some people the idea of that is going to rub them the wrong way, but there's just like a lot of lyricism and denseness here in the text, which oftentimes, as I listened to this more and more, I realized that this reminds me a lot of like a Ghostface album, right? In terms of how dense the storytelling is, how smooth and how subtle a lot of the lyrics are and references and things like that. And I know that there was a lot of slang, some of it probably connected to prison and the correction system, that just probably still went right over my head. But even if I only got 50% of what was being said in the lyrics, I still understood like it was so dense in a lot of regards. So obviously, if you know Russian, pull the lyrics up with this and kind of like go through as you're giving this a listen. The one downside to this album is it's like an hour, and that I think for some people in 2025 is going to be like, oh, it's an hour, it's a long time. But the songs are varied enough overall that when it does kind of start to feel like you've been hearing kind of the same thing over and over again, the songs switch it up. This is just like a really good album. This is just like a rap album. And we've definitely had some this year, but I feel like it's been a while since there's been one just as like, this is it. His voice is also one that I know I've seen some people complain about, but the first 10 bars already.
раскопках ко мне едут Джорданы со штатов завтра на Пхукет. И хочется уже стабильности и равновесия, но смог бы ли тогда вообще написать куплет? В московских новостройках делал суку, у кого доход по скромненьким подсчетам где-то 200к в неделю. А завтра я снимаю где-то за 7,5 ту, которую за сегодня 10 раз уж отымели. Ну а в этой колыбели получаю сведения о гранях, обрамляющих портрет этой странной реальности. Для тех, кто пашет по 3 смены на заводах, я обязан перед Богом, бля, все это, сука, как-то донести. Ведь это его планы, я всего лишь исполнитель. Эти люди хотят слышать то, что никак не прожить им, использовав мои картины как путеводитель. Мне как водителю только проезд там оплатите. Миссия художника в том, чтобы рисковать и вам отыскивать сияние пропасти канатоходцам, подглядывать за край и убивать все человека, чтобы видеть то, что будничным глазам не удается. Я сегодня на ПП варю индейку с овощами, сам себе обещаю.
It does not stop. Once he gets going, there are not many choruses on this album. It is just straight verse after verse after verse.
Фотографию, что мне не подошла на загранпаспорт. Я внутри борделя Арбата употребляю с бачка унитаза гадость, что меня заставит бычить на их персонал. Хочу ебать занал прямо сейчас и хостесы, мне похуй на последствия. Ведь я, естественно, пробил ценник заранее, чтобы все в доле с мусорами были, как тут испокон заведено. И она тоже на ведро присядет, и эти дорожки, скорчив рожу, что, бля, типа не такая. Но мы знаем твою сущность, что тебе кормить надо детей, пока их батенька съебался в недры темных лагерей. И лишь звоните с просьбой подогреть его на чиферок с печеньками. Детишкам он по видео расскажет: я на вахте, малыши. Не забывайте, все решим. Еще бурить, бля, эти дыры для Газпрома очень долго, но вы мне пишите. Я на севере, тут холод. Спустя года вернется с новым хахалем, их маму спалит. И 105-я, вторая изоляторы. Оттуда сразу же в окопы классика. Через полгода он герой, а чё ваши законы? Аплодисментами встречает город. Вернется к женушке с раскаянием, что типа был неправ и сейчас совсем другой. Она обнимет и по новой, там скандалы, сковороды по залету дитятка. О чем кормить его, не сытый, дорогуша.
Like, I mean, again, if you understand Russian, that sort of picture into the struggle, like the real life struggles kind of on the fringes of society, if you will. Like that's a really good example of that. But then musically too, right? This feels a little bit like Ghostface. I was listening to this just like, not 100%, but
ча-ча-ча, привет, пятерик, строгача. Вышел корона, 2 года прошло, началась не корона. Русский страгл, это проживать пиздец для микрофона. Сейчас можно грабануть любого, делившись погонами. Потом за дело ехать не на зону, но в зону. Через полгода возвращаться губернатором области. Русский страгл, это открывать в себе суперспособности. Я добивался любви женщин только чтоб забыть о них. Я добивался денег, но лишь только чтоб забыть о них. Скрывал пакет у всех на глазах, только чтоб забить на них. Меня надо закрыть было, чтоб я сделал открытие. Мои паруса несут проклятие, ведь это в спину все. Ебусь сегодня так, будто вчера откинулся. Морозный страгл на Руси, боже, нас упаси. Скоро всех что-то коснется, ты коси, не коси. Она спросила, почему мои песни такие черствые. Я отвечаю, потому что они про Россию. Почему у тех ребят глаза такие мертвые? Потому что либо красные, ну либо мусорские. Можно изучать.
So yeah, it's a very dense album. It's a very dense rap album. And it is one that, again, if you don't know Russian and you just go in with like a ghost face, there are going to be some tracks that you can pull off of that are going to have like that ghost face energy. I think that's a pretty good similarity to draw for the non-Russian speaking audience. But if you're watching this and you speak Russian, pull up the lyrics. If you don't, because like, again, I can understand a lot of what's being said just listening to it, but every once in a while he'll be going through something and I'll hear something, I'm just like, did I catch that correctly? And then I'll go back and I'll take a look at the lyrics and I'm like, yeah, I did, but then there's something from a line up above that I probably did not link together. So it's like a really solid rap album. And yeah, that honestly is it's getting the top pick of the week. So the artist is Metox and the album is Lojko Zobor. And I guess you could always go read the story. The story by Gorky is Makar Chudra is the name of it. The Lojko Zobor is the name of a young gypsy in the story. But all right, that is it for albums. But I had a request from End of the Story here in the chat, or the End of Story in the chat here, to talk about the Kanye West diss by Haski. And we're going to take a look at that now. I'm going to actually just play the video. So everyone, it's a short song, so here we go.
Ты, наверное, в LA, я сегодня в Донецке. У кента ПТСР, и он застыл будто Нецке. Мы везем пару птиц в сторону ЛБС. Я пишу этот дис на тебя, мистер Вест. Говорят, что тебе шили новую юбку. Не для этого ли мы все шагнем в мясорубку? Белые папуасы лягут и сгниют. На губах застынет грязью, славься Голливуд. Чтобы бился Нью-Йорк в экстазах свободы, умирать за нее. Где-то будут уроды, где-то близнецы оспорят генетический тест. Доедают друг друга за тебя, мистер Вест. За один твой взгляд, легкий как безе. Русский рэпер нарисует жопу на лице. Он молился пузырям весь свой короткий век. Все мы выросли в Америке, которой нет. Они скажут мне, ах, ты ли сам не пародия? Почему не в лаптях? Скажут, что я юродивый, что судьба моя падаль, и общий с ними мой крест. Повторять чего надо? Прикажи, мистер Вест. Я видел сон, что Л.А. демонтировали, и на Беверли-Хиллз батальон Сомали. И какой-то араб на хромом ишаке изнасиловал негра в твоем пиджаке.
So, let's talk about this. I'm gonna go ahead and put us back here. So, with that track, I have mixed feelings on it. Not because it's honestly it's like really well produced. Lyrics are good. I think when you actually get into the comments section underneath the video, it's surprisingly civil, at least now. Maybe when it first came out, it was kind of a mess. The main idea of that, it's not actually a diss on Kanye West. Kanye West is just a stand-in for the West in that situation. And I think it's an interesting track in the sense that it ostensibly, it feels like it's hard because the whole idea is Haski is rapping about how Russia and Ukraine, basically the former Soviet countries, have been attempting to take a seat at the table in the West and in turn fighting with each other over that. And while there are some discussions to be made as to that, and I have seen some really good takes on that in the comment section below the video, what I think is interesting is one of the main through lines of that song, and this is why I said it's kind of complicated. One of the main through lines on that song is this idea of how the West is an illusion for them, right? In fact, there's that line, «Вырос в Америке, который уже не существует», or I don't remember exactly how it goes, but basically, I grew up in an America which no longer exists, is the gist of one of the lines in that track. And I think the thing is, and I don't know, maybe Husky doesn't mean it, but it feels like it's supposed to be this dismissal, or not dismissal, but this sort of contempt at themselves, at Husky and at the people, and at maybe his generation, of how they all grew up with this idea of what life was like in the States and this and that, and how it was all a farce, it was all a lie, or how that situation has changed. But I think the thing is, that kind of ignores the situation by and large of it not just being, I mean, the thing is, that track still kind of ignores the fact that that's the situation for everybody. Like, I also grew up in an America which no longer exists. Not in the sense of, and you could realistically argue too that I also, growing up, had certain ideas and views of America and the West, and that has changed. But so on the one hand, it is, and it's obviously aimed at a Russian or a Russian-speaking audience, or a post-Soviet audience. But it also brings up the sort of idea of Monetочка from last year. And Monetочка is a foreign agent, so, right, I theoretically have like a little dumbass text down here so that Roskomnadzor doesn't come in and like beat my ass. But Monetочка put out a song last year, which basically, really good track too, by the way, what was basically about, that was a long time ago in a Russia that no longer exists. And so like the Husky track is really good, and there are a lot of points in that track, but I think ultimately the problem that I have with it is that it still ultimately feels like it ignores, in some senses, the larger pictures, and is still hyper focused on like I don't know exactly how to put this into words, because it's a complicated one, right? And I don't know if what I'm saying quite fully gets it, or gets to the point, but this idea that, like, we were the ones who were fooled, or we fooled ourselves into believing this. But I think the thing with that song is that also is very self-centered in a way. Like, I don't want to say that people in the United States or in the West have it worse than, say, people in Russia or Ukraine, or anywhere else. But what I'm saying is that this idea of the song of, like, we bought into a lie, and this lie or this ideal that we thought was what we wanted is not the case. I think the problem with that is that it feels like a lot of people around the world are feeling that right now. And so on the one hand, I get the diss, right? I get the idea of it. But on the other hand, it kind of feels, when you start to think about it and start to unpack it, especially as somebody who grew up in that America that no longer exists also, it kind of feels like it's a valid criticism just by and large for everyone. And that while there are some specific barbs and jabs that could realistically be aimed at the West, by and large, it feels like it's maybe a picture of not just the West, but the global elite in general, and the power structures that be, and how the message that we were sold, or the picture that we were sold 20 years ago or 10 years ago, or right, really not that long ago, how we have recently discovered that it's not really the case, and that world is gone. Realistically, it was about 20 years ago, right? So that's kind of why I have a mixed feeling about that song. It's a really good track. The music video is perfect. It's a great music video, and all of that. But I think, and I think obviously for some people, it's got like a really spot on message. But it's, yeah. The track is full of not exactly pleasant populism. Okay. The actual name Kanye West represents the dog West. That is, the track supports the pseudonym Kanye. At the same time as the creative work of Kanye West is a middle finger. Popular culture is a middle finger to the popular culture of the United States. The so-called blackface is just a laugh at the modern psyop. In general, it is an anti-diss on Kanye West as an individual. That's the thing, though, is I didn't actually think it was a diss against Kanye in general, that Kanye was just being used as a stand-in. Like, I can understand as well, too. Yeah, for sure. Like, that was when I first listened to it, there were a few lines here and there that I was like, okay, that kind of fits Kanye, but what is this? And I listened to it a second time. I was like, oh, right, West, Kanye West. Yeah, Kanye West is just a stand-in for Western culture in this. That is by and large. But again, like I said, it's a good track and the message is good, but it feels like it's a message that pretends that this same point of view in the same situation does not exist outside of Russia or Ukraine, right? That's kind of how it feels listening to the track, right? Like, we were duped. And maybe that's not it. Maybe Husky is saying that, like, the whole world was duped. But, and maybe that is, maybe there is a way of reading into it, like, as such. But there are a few lines in there, to my memory, and I can't think of them right now, that do feel like it is more specifically oriented towards Haski and his peers, which is fine. Like, I get that. But that's why I'm saying that for me, personally, listening to the track, it's like, I get it, but there's also like yes, 100%, every right, but it's not just like, it's kind of everybody at this point in time, right? That's why we are seeing things, various states of unrest around the world for various reasons. Like, Nepal, I think. Yeah. In and of itself, the figure of Kanye West as an artist is a hypertrophied or like a hyperinflated Western. As an artist is hyperinflated Western pop culture. Later, Husky shared a photo where he was standing with Kanye West. That was actually the on Spotify. I don't know if that's still the case, but if you look for Husky Kanye West disc on Spotify, it actually has the, I believe, that photo. Let me try to find it here real fast, just to double check. My computer is Spotify, and then Husky. So I think it does have the. No, they changed it. They changed it to the one with the brick on it. But originally it had the image. So yeah, it's an interesting track. It is a very interesting track. It is in a lot of ways. Yeah. On YouTube you can still find the image, and it's like on Reddit or wherever you can go around and find it too. It's not hard. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you just do like a Google search for Kanye West disc Husky, you'll probably. I think it might be on Genius too, on the lyric page. It is, yeah, on the Genius page. They still have it up. So, yeah, they do still have it up there. But so, and that was actually the picture I first saw with it, not the. There's a new one now with like a brick, but so yeah, like I said, I think it's a good track. It's a great music video. It's very like it's really good, and I think it's fair. It would be interesting to understand though, or to ask Husky though, if he feels that this is specific 100% for like post-Soviet states, or if this is a more universal point of view. Because like I said, I feel like there are a lot of people in the Kanye West part of the world who are also of the same sentiment. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, that's why I said I had mixed feelings about it, but I think realistically, overall, it's fine. It's a complicated track, and it brings up complicated ideas. And I feel like Husky himself, while he had a pretty clear idea, it also feels like it is also quite open. Like, he probably himself didn't fully know exactly what he wanted to say, because I'm sure a lot of it was just, not a lot of it, but I'm sure a good portion of it was emotion as well. But all right, I'm gonna wrap it up. It is, I think this is the longest one it's been, and we didn't have that many albums. Just I got kind of sucked into one thing or another. I'm a sleepy Sally right now is what it comes down to. All right, but yeah, if honestly anytime something like that comes up, it's always fun to kind of dig into it and talk about it, because we don't really get too many tracks like that. Let's be real. So, but yeah, that was it. Still, 16 albums this week was much better than last week. So I am I'm glad. I know already that there are I already have a lot of good stuff in my playlist that I need to get around to for next week. So we are now not in a dry spell anymore. We're going to have more good releases next week as well. But yeah, I'll be back next Thursday, 10 p.m. Moscow to do the music, and then I'll be back to cover whatever odds and ends are happening in current events here in Russia on Sunday and Wednesday at 9 p.m., as you are all very well aware. But everyone have a good evening, a good afternoon. Y'all take care of yourselves. I will see you when I see you. I think I'm going to go to bed. But yeah. Пока-пока.